She had everything the world could envy, except the one thing she needed most. High above the busy streets, a woman stood quietly at her window. Her home, a beautiful penthouse in Manhattan, was filled with signs of success. The large glass windows looked out over thousands of city lights, each one reminding her of big dreams and hard work. Inside, shiny floors and expensive art showed that life here was comfortable, even glamorous. She had worked hard for every bit of it. To the world, she was a respected doctor, a woman praised for her intelligence, married to a famous tech billionaire. Her picture had been in magazines. She had spoken at conferences, received awards, and was always invited to important parties. Most people thought her life was perfect, but no one saw the challenges she faced when the doors were closed. There were struggles and pain that never made the headlines. Tonight, as she stood alone, her greatest wish felt further away than ever. Years of hope and heartbreak rested on her shoulders, and not even all her wealth and achievements could help her now. The room felt colder, not because of the temperature, but because of the distant tone in Garrison's voice. Once his words had warmed her spirit, now they landed with a heaviness that seemed to press the air from her chest. He stood in a sharp suit near the center of the penthouse, eyeing her not as a partner, but as someone standing in the way of his future. Long gone was the man who whispered promises under soft city lights. Tonight's conversation was not just another tense night. It was the moment everything would change. He spoke with calm finality. "I've made my decision." His gaze barely met hers. "Our marriage isn't providing the legacy I need. The Montrose name requires heirs, and you've proven inadequate." She felt the ache deep within her, a pain tied not just to her body's struggles, but to 7 years of hope, heartbreak, and silent prayers. His next words were colder than any winter storm. The future she had worked so hard to build now seemed on the verge of collapse. She managed to steady her voice, holding back the wave rising inside. "There are still options. My doctor has a new plan, and he's hopeful." His interruption sliced through her, emotionless and definite. "Enough. I won't continue with empty hope. My attorneys have drafted divorce papers. You'll need to sign them by the end of the week." The message was delivered with the calm efficiency of a boardroom memo, not a husband ending a marriage. A heavy silence filled the space. As she tried to gather her thoughts, the sound of the elevator broke in. Unexpected, perfectly timed to deepen the wound. The doors opened onto the polished floor, revealing Celeste. Young and self-assured, Celeste's entrance carried the quiet confidence of someone who knows she's already won. One hand rested gently on her midsection, as if cradling a precious secret. Her designer dress fit flawlessly, but it was her satisfied smile that cut deeper than jewels. Without hesitation, Celeste moved to Garrison's side, her presence erasing any doubt about her newfound place in his world. She spoke with the practiced sweetness of someone used to getting her way. "I couldn't wait any longer. I have news that changes everything." Celeste's words echoed through the room, words carefully chosen to deliver the most damage. She approached Garrison with a knowing look, her confidence backed by a secret only now revealed. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. "We're expecting a child," Celeste announced, her voice gentle yet triumphant. 8 weeks. The doctor says all is well." Her hand lingered over her dress, the gesture leaving no room for misunderstanding. Every unspoken hope and heartache crashed in an instant. Dreams that had taken root through years of struggle were being shattered. Right here, in the home that had once held laughter and dreams for two. Garrison moved to stand beside Celeste, making it clear to everyone where his loyalty now rested. While one woman fought for a future together, another had arrived carrying precisely what he claimed to need most. The revelation was more than personal. It was public, and its timing was no accident. A bitter irony colored the air. While she endured endless treatments, hoping for a miracle, Garrison and his assistant had found their own answer elsewhere. Questions began swirling in her mind, not just about the affair, but about how deep the planned betrayal truly ran. She stood frozen, blindsided by waves of shock, pain, and slow-building clarity. Every detail, the legal paperwork, the sudden timing, the assistant's unveiled secret, fit together a little too neatly. Trust, years in the making, vanished in a single moment. Drawing a shaky breath, she faced Garrison and Celeste, her voice quiet but no longer uncertain. "You planned this," she said, realization making her words steady. "While I was searching for answers, you were creating your own—" The hurt was sharp, but anger began to burn away the pain. Garrison's reply held no softness. "Celeste will give the Montrose family its future. You have until Friday." His statement left no room for doubt. Her place in this home, in this story, had been decided. The room felt smaller now, filled not with love or hope, but with calculation and victory claimed by others. Even the city lights seemed further away, as if the world had already moved on. Yet the story would not end here. Deeper forces were in motion, secrets, ambitions, and consequences that went far beyond a simple betrayal. What seemed predictable tonight would soon give way to turns nobody expected. For every action done in the dark, the world always finds a way to bring into the light. Morning brought little comfort. In the quiet hours before the city was fully awake, the sound of packing tape and moving boxes replaced the steady rhythm of her old life. There was no time for reflection. Garrison's lawyers had arrived on schedule, their expressions businesslike, their task clear. Remove any trace of the woman who once shared this address. She sat across from Patricia Blackwell, the attorney chosen for her efficiency and lack of sentiment. "The agreement you signed is straightforward," Patricia said, her words clipped as she slid a folder across the kitchen counter. "Under these terms, you'll keep an apartment downtown and a financial settlement. You'll find the specifics enclosed." Years ago, she'd believed marriage was about trust, not contracts. Back then, the fine print hadn't seemed important. The realization stung. Every line, every clause, now carved out the limits of her new reality. She glanced at the familiar space, the table where she'd planned so many futures, the window where laughter once echoed. Today, every piece of furniture felt like a stranger, already ready to leave her behind. With a steady hand, she reached for the documents. The future was smaller now, but it was hers alone. Moving day blurred into a series of instructions, signatures, and short, polite exchanges with people paid to pretend nothing personal was happening. Within hours, the penthouse was stripped of warmth and familiarity. Her belongings were taken out in boxes, each one labeled with a number, not a name. Arriving at her new apartment in Soho, she was greeted not by friends, but by silence. The rooms were smaller, the ceilings lower, the view replaced by brick walls instead of city skylines. As she unpacked, she noticed which invitations stopped arriving, which contacts fell silent. Those who once praised her at charity events now ignored her calls. The same boards that had once waited for her opinion now sent form letters saying her position was no longer needed. Isolation crept in, sharper than any legal loss. Evenings stretched long and empty, filled only by the hum of distant traffic and boxes stacked like unfinished chapters. With every friend lost to gossip, her heart learned a harder lesson. Status could disappear overnight, but character could not be taken away. Unpacking her old journals and research notes, resolve began to grow. She remembered sleepless nights spent studying, hurdles she'd overcome in medical school, and the fortitude those times demanded. Today, she promised herself she would find that strength again. Nights in her new apartment were often restless. The noises of Soho were different, less polished, more honest. She sat by the window, watching streetlights flicker across stone and steel. The world she once ruled had closed its doors, but a quieter world waited outside, unconcerned with glitz and titles. Each evening, as she sorted through the remnants of her old life, determination grew stronger. She rediscovered her love for medicine, her curiosity about new treatments, her desire to help where hope was in short supply. In the solitude of those first weeks, an idea took shape. She would put her skills to work for people who didn't have access to opportunity, creating meaning not from wealth or status, but from service. The memory of being cast aside did not bring shame now. Instead, it became a driving force. Each morning, she found herself standing a bit taller, her voice steadier during phone calls to clinics and licensing boards. Rebuilding would not be easy. The path forward looked different than the one she had dreamed with Garrison. Yet, for the first time in years, the future belonged only to her. For anyone watching, no matter how far you fall, there is always a way to rebuild. If you've ever felt alone, left behind, or stripped of what you thought made you whole, share your story in the comments. Someone out there may need your courage today. Remember to like, subscribe, and let us know where in the world you're watching from. 2 years had passed since the day her world changed forever. The small medical practice she opened in Brooklyn was nothing like the glittering charity galas she once attended, but it was real in ways her old life never was. Here, patients didn't arrive in expensive cars or designer clothes. They came carrying hope and trust, gifts more valuable than any donation check. Each morning brought stories of struggle and perseverance. Women who worked double shifts while fighting for their dreams of motherhood. Couples who saved every dollar for treatment while others spent thousands on weekend trips. The work was challenging, often heartbreaking, but it filled a space inside her that luxury never could. Her apartment had transformed too. Medical journals replaced fashion magazines. Research papers covered the coffee table where society newsletters once lay scattered. Late nights were spent studying new treatments instead of planning dinner parties for people who had forgotten her name. Dr. Rachel Hartwell, her research partner, had become not just a colleague but a true friend. Their shared passion for helping women who faced the same struggles she once knew created a bond deeper than any built on social status. Together, they were building something meaningful, a practice that treated patients as people, not problems to be solved quickly for profit. One rainy evening, Dr. Hartwell burst into the office, her excitement obvious. "You need to see this," she announced, laying out fresh copies of international medical journals. "There's been a major breakthrough in fertility treatments, something that could help women with cases like yours." The news wasn't just speak of statistics. It was real hope, proven by successful clinical results in Europe. The Geneva Institute's latest study showed that advanced hormone therapy, combined with new embryo selection protocols, had achieved success for women who had faced repeated failed treatments before. The data was promising, but more than numbers, the stories of the patients resonated deeply. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of motherhood return, not as wishful thinking, but as something tangible. Research details revealed the genetic markers addressed by the new methods matched her profile closely. Dr. Hartwell's encouragement was steady and genuine, reminding her that she was more than just another patient. She was a pioneer in her own right. The treatment, however, came with challenges. It was expensive and only available at a clinic in Switzerland. Weighing her options, she realized the investment might be worth more than all the stability she'd lost. With careful planning and the support of her friend, the idea of traveling for one last chance didn't feel reckless. It felt brave. 3 months later found her in a quiet apartment near Lake Geneva, just steps away from the clinic that represented her new hope. Days were shaped not by social schedules, but by appointments, careful routines, and honest conversations with medical professionals who saw possibilities instead of roadblocks. The city outside was peaceful, allowing space for recovery and reflection. Dr. Anders Holstrom, the lead researcher, greeted her with calm confidence. His questions were thoughtful, his approach respectful. "Your case interests me," he said, reviewing her files with care. "Our research suggests there were obstacles overlooked before, specific genetic patterns and stress responses that need different solutions. With the right plan, your chances improve dramatically." She followed each stage of treatment with discipline, never losing sight of why she came. The process was demanding, requiring patience and time away from everything familiar. Yet as weeks passed, hope returned like a gentle breeze, filling the place where doubt had settled. Success was far from certain, but after years of setbacks, the possibility was enough. Supported by her own determination and a team of experts, She realized she was no longer wishing for a miracle. She was taking steps to create one. Here, in this new setting, life offered her a second chance not just at motherhood, but at defining her journey on her own terms. Weeks of careful monitoring led to the moment she'd quietly hoped for. In the sterile comfort of the clinic, the doctor entered with a gentle smile and the test results in hand. "Congratulations," he announced, voice warm and sincere. "You are expecting—" For a moment the world seemed to stop. She had heard similar words before, but circumstances always took hope away. Now, surrounded by expertise and kindness, the meaning felt different. Every setback and loss along the way made this small victory shine even brighter. Emotions flooded in, a mixture of relief, disbelief, and cautious joy. Years of painful treatments and disappointments had tested her resolve, but now the chance to become a parent was finally hers to embrace. She allowed herself the simple pleasure of dreaming again, imagining a future filled with the sounds of laughter and new beginnings. As the pregnancy progressed, each appointment built her confidence further. Support from friends back home kept her spirits high. She started writing letters to her future child, sharing thoughts and feelings she never could with anyone else. The healing that began in Switzerland was more than medical. It was also emotional, changing her outlook and her heart. Still, life had lessons to teach. What happened next would prove that when hope is challenged, miracles have a way of surprising everyone, especially those who need it most. The ultrasound room was calm, filled with the gentle sound of soft-spoken instructions and the rhythm of her own heartbeat. She watched the screen, waiting anxiously as the technician studied the image. The doctor's face broke into a look of genuine astonishment. "There's something I need to show you," he said. Her mind raced as he pointed out the details on the screen. Not one heartbeat, not two, but three. Triplets. Shock, wonder, and disbelief tumbled together. After so many years of painful attempts and heartbreaking losses, the news was almost unbelievable. She was carrying not just a single child, but 3 lives at once. Emotion swept over her, making it hard to speak. The clinic staff shared her joy, offering congratulations and careful plans for the months ahead. Carrying triplets would mean extra challenges, careful monitoring, and periods of rest, but she was determined. Every setback had prepared her for this moment. She emailed friends and her research partner, sharing the news she never thought she'd get to deliver. Their replies were filled with encouragement and pride. It wasn't just a medical milestone, it was a personal victory over years of disappointment. She promised herself, and her future children, that every day would be met with gratitude and perseverance. The world expected less from her, but soon it would learn just how much she could overcome. Pregnancy with triplets tested her strength in new ways. There were weeks when the doctors asked her to rest, moments when uncertainty threatened to return, and times when she doubted her own endurance. Yet she never faced those challenges alone. In Geneva, the staff checked on her closely, encouraging steady progress and celebrating every milestone. Letters and messages from Brooklyn reminded her that she was missed, not for the circle she once moved in, but for the difference she now made in people's lives. Her patients followed her journey, rooting for her from afar, inspired by the hope she shared with them. Each day she reminded herself that this journey was about more than becoming a mother. It was about proving that past heartbreak would not define her future. When the day finally arrived for her to travel back to New York, she felt nervous but ready. She walked out of the clinic stronger, not just because of the medical success, but because she had chosen to believe in herself even when the world said otherwise. Quietly and without fanfare, she returned home, carrying not just the hope of new life, but the knowledge that her story was far from over. The next chapter would be written with courage, love, and an unbreakable will. March 15th became a date she would never forget. In a bright hospital room in New York, surrounded by skilled professionals, she brought 3 healthy babies into the world, 2 daughters and 1 son. Their combined cries filled the air, announcing their arrival just minutes apart. She named them Grace, Hope, and Finn. Names chosen for their meaning and the journey that brought them here. As she held her children for the first time, tears welled up, not from pain but from a sense of completeness she'd never known before. Years of loss, doubt, and hidden struggle were replaced by love that seemed limitless. Each baby was more than a miracle. They were proof that dreams could survive even the darkest nights. Life quickly became a whirlwind of sleepless nights and joyful days. Her practice grew, patience trusted her, and each afternoon ended with small arms wrapped around her neck. She watched her children learn, grow, and discover the world. With help from a caring nanny, she built a home that echoed with laughter instead of tension. She taught her children that love, not possessions, made life worth living. No longer defined by what she had lost, she focused on everything she had gained. Days turned into years, filled with new experiences and milestones. Raising 3 energetic children required patience and perseverance. The lessons from her own journey shaped how she guided them through life's early challenges. She celebrated their first steps, comforted them through fevers, and encouraged their curious minds. Every moment, no matter how small, was cherished more than any award she'd ever received. Her clinic flourished, drawing patients from across the city. Families who once lost hope found comfort in her story and her determination. She built a team dedicated to supporting women and couples facing infertility, sharing both knowledge and empathy from her own experience. Success wasn't measured in magazine headlines anymore, but in the gratitude of those whose lives she helped to change. Meanwhile, the world she'd left behind continued to move on. News of Garrison and Celeste reached her now and then, not because she sought it out, but because society's columns had a habit of circulating rumors. They were married in grand fashion, their sons celebrated in glossy publications, but whispers of tension and struggle surfaced over time. Unlike her former life, her present was peaceful and real. She chose not to compare, focusing on the world she'd built for herself and her children, a world defined by love, resilience, and honest happiness. Life moved on, marked by the small victories that truly mattered: a child learning to read, a quiet dinner with friends, the comfort of genuine laughter. As years passed, her clinic became one of the most trusted places for families seeking answers and hope. She was no longer whispered about in gossip columns. Her name stood for expertise, compassion, and the ability to overcome adversity. She did not chase newspaper stories or look for validation in distant social circles. Her focus remained on building new memories for her children, celebrating milestones, and advising young doctors with empathy and care. The sound of her children's laughter each morning signaled a future that had been won through patience and faith. News of Garrison and Celeste's life drifted in only rarely. Magazine stories boasted of luxury and public events, but there were hints that happiness did not come easily for them. Now, she looked ahead, not back. Unbeknownst to her, events were being set in motion that would bring her past and present face to face in the most public setting imaginable. The invitation that would reshape everything was already making its way to her door, waiting for the moment she'd be called to stand tall and rewrite the story once more. The invitation arrived on a crisp morning, tucked among bills and letters. Heavy paper, elegant script, and the seal of the Montrose family announced an event that could not be ignored: a grand wedding renewal ceremony in the Hamptons, timed to celebrate Garrison and Celeste's 5th anniversary and their son's birthday. She held the card in silence. Attending meant stepping back into the world that once rejected her, facing the same people who had whispered and speculated about her life. It was a stage set for display, a place for old wounds to ache and old stories to be retold. The temptation to toss the invitation away was strong, but doubts lingered in her mind. When her longtime friend Dr. Benjamin Hartwell pressed her to attend, his words weighed heavily. "You have nothing to prove to them," he reminded her gently. "But you do have the chance to close an old chapter on your own terms." The advice stuck, but it was her daughter's innocent question that broke her resolve. "Mom, don't you want to dress up and visit the fancy party too?" The decision was made. She would go, not for show or revenge, but to reclaim control and show her children what true strength looked like. The days leading up to the ceremony were full of mixed emotions. As she shopped for an outfit that would send the right message, she chose not luxury but quiet elegance, a silk dress in midnight blue that complemented her natural grace. Gone were the doubts that once weighed her down. Instead, she focused on showing her children the confidence she'd gained from adversity. Her children watched with wide eyes as she prepared for the event. They picked out their favorite clothes, each excited by the idea of visiting a big, important party with their mother. In the mirror, she saw not just her own reflection, but the hope and trust they carried, proof that she had rebuilt something lasting. The drive to the Hamptons was calm, windows down, laughter echoing across the seats. As the estate came into view, lined with expensive cars and perfectly trimmed gardens, she felt the old world press close. Yet this time, it could not touch her spirit. She entered the venue with her children at her side, head held high. The crowd of former acquaintances and socialites paused to watch. Whispers floated across the room and curious eyes followed every move, but she didn't shrink from the attention. Instead, she stepped forward with assurance, ready for whatever the night would bring. Inside, the Montrose estate gleamed with wealth and careful planning. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above rows of white roses, and the city's elite mingled in designer fashions. Old acquaintances greeted her with polite surprise, offering compliments about her clinic and asking careful questions about her personal life. She answered with gentle honesty, redirecting conversations to her work and her children. Her confidence was genuine. Her life was built on truth, not appearances. It wasn't long before whispers grew into speculation. Guests noticed the children at her side, three faces that resembled her in ways impossible to ignore. As the music played and speeches began, her children remained close. Their excitement was contagious. Even amid old tensions and judgmental glances, their joy never faded. She watched them explore the grand rooms, marveling at the celebration and clinging to the comfort of her presence. The moment arrived when the crowd's attention shifted. Her name passed among guests, the story of her journey resurfacing in quiet voices. She felt no fear, only the calm certainty that she belonged, her strength unshaken by old gossip or new glances. The stage was set for truths to surface and for the past to finally meet the present. What followed would not only change how the world saw her, but would also teach her children the value of courage. The party reached its peak just as her children, guided by their nanny, made their way through the bustling crowd. Dressed in their best, eyes alive with curiosity, they quickly drew attention. Subtle conversations paused, heads turned, and quiet wonder crossed faces. Their resemblance to her was impossible to overlook. She moved with grace, greeting former friends and fielding curious comments about her work. But as her children joined her side, a palpable change rippled through the room. People whispered, speculating not just about her return, but now about the family she had built since leaving the Montrose name behind. Across the room, Garrison watched with growing unease. His carefully constructed world, a marriage to Celeste, a place among society's elite, depended on maintaining an image few dared challenge. Yet, as he locked eyes with the children, recognition spread across his face. The truth he had avoided now stood in clear view. Celeste, sensing the shift in attention, moved closer to Garrison, her smile wavering. Questions hung unspoken between them and the crowd, riding on glances and the silent realization that the past had never truly faded away. It was alive and standing before them, ready to confront any denial. The music softened. Tension mingled with curiosity, and every eye in the room waited for the next moment. It was her daughter Grace who finally broke the silence. With a confident step, she approached her mother, voice ringing genuinely. "Mom, you look like you belong here," she said, smiling as she reached for her hand. Hope and Finn followed, settling beside her and looking out at the crowd with an innocence that disarmed even the coldest onlooker. Someone nearby whispered, "They look just like her." Others nodded, tracing the similarities, the same hair, the same eyes, and even the same grace in their posture. The resemblance was undeniable, and curiosity began to spread faster than any rumor. Garrison, unable to stay in the background, crossed the room. His eyes shifted between her and the children, searching for answers he had denied for years. Celeste pressed close to him, her uncomfortable smile now replaced by a thin line of worry. "What is this?" Garrison demanded, his voice low but audible to anyone nearby. "You said you couldn't." She met his gaze, standing firm. "We tried for years, Garrison, but the outcome wasn't only mine to control." The words held weight. They carried every disappointment, every accusation, every lonely night spent fearing she was at fault. The crowd leaned in, sensing a pivotal moment. The truth, long buried by pride and assumption, was ready to surface in front of everyone who mattered. Before another word could pass, Hope stepped forward, her youthful voice carrying through the now silent room. "Mom says we're strong because she never gave up on us. She always believed we'd come, even when nobody else did." The innocence in her words silenced lingering doubts and pierced through hardened faces, reaching people who'd once turned their backs. A respected medical colleague, present as a guest, spoke up next, her words chosen carefully for the attentive crowd. "Stories like hers are changing our understanding of what's possible." The obstacles she faced were not just medical, but personal and emotional. Success didn't come from giving up. It came from healing, support, and persistence. Even those who once judged now looked on with a mixture of admiration and regret. The supposed truth of years past dissolved under the weight of undeniable evidence. The triplets were living proof that hope endures, even after dreams seem broken. Garrison, standing speechless before his former wife and their children, realized the full scope of his mistake. He had abandoned the person most capable of building the family he claimed to want, blinded by impatience and pride. The social tide had turned. The room was no longer his. In that moment, the silence was more powerful than any accusation. She had found her voice, and the world couldn't look away. As guests broke from their stunned silence, a wave of conversation swept through the crowd. Old friends approached her not with pity or doubt, but with genuine respect, many apologizing for believing rumors, admitting their own regrets for turning away. For years, the story of her so-called failure had whispered through high society as a cautionary tale. Today, that narrative was replaced by admiration for her resilience and honesty. Reporters at the event, sensing a story that defied easy judgment, began taking interest in her journey. They wanted to know more about her clinic, her recovery, and the kindness she continued to show those once quick to judge her. Headlines the next morning would tell a different story. A woman who overcame loss, rejection, and misunderstanding, emerging stronger and changing lives in the process. Garrison, standing off to the side, became the subject of uncomfortable glances and hushed words. The role he'd played in casting her aside was now common knowledge. His remarriage, once seen as the perfect solution to his legacy problem, was now re-examined as the act that revealed his true character. The children clung to their mother, beaming with pride. For them, it was never about society's approval, but the unconditional love that had shaped their lives from the very beginning. The rest of the evening unfolded as if the past had finally been set free. People who once kept their distance now sought her advice, eager to learn from someone who had survived heartbreak and risen to new heights. She responded with warmth, choosing kindness over resentment. Her strength was not just in what she'd endured, but in how she carried it. Garrison, for the first time, appeared unsure and isolated. Celeste remained by his side, but both felt the weight of the moment, recognizing that public approval could never replace the genuine connection they had forfeited. As the party drew to a close, he offered a quiet apology, not in front of the crowd, but in a small, private moment that spoke of regret and self-awareness. She accepted his words, not out of anger, but out of closure. There was no need for revenge or public spectacle. The truth, now fully revealed, was more powerful than anything she could have said aloud. Her children were the true legacy. Their resilience, joy, and kindness reflected a journey marked by hope, healing, and courage. Leaving the estate, she held their hands with calm pride. The public silencing of Garrison was never about vindication. It was a testament to the strength built from loss and the love she gave without conditions. Years later, her story continued to inspire, shared in clinics, classrooms, and family rooms. Mothers who faced steep odds found comfort in her journey. Young doctors learned that healing was about more than medicine, but also about faith, empathy, and determination. Her triplets grew into thoughtful, independent spirits, carrying lessons of courage and kindness into the world. She never returned to the spotlight of high society. Instead, she built a quieter legacy. Her practice expanded, reaching communities in need. Her children thrived, guided by her example and the understanding that love and strength overcome hardship. Garrison's story followed a different path. In time, he learned to accept responsibility for the choices that had shaped so many lives. While his regrets lingered, he came to understand the true cost of pride and the reward of humility. As each chapter closed, one truth remained. Adversity could shape destinies, but it could never erase the possibility of hope. Her life, a testament to resilience and forgiveness, showed that dignity and grace bring victory even when the world seems to have forgotten your worth. If you've made it this far, remember that every story worth telling is written with struggle, with love, and with hope. Like, subscribe, and let others know you believe in second chances.